Hey guys, Brandon Woolham hanging out in Nashville with our friend Nathan Sheridan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We've been hanging out all day chatting. We figured we finally would turn on the cameras. And I know plenty about you,
Yes.
but these folks have not probably heard the Nathan testimony yet, which is a pretty powerful one. So let's go back many years and tell
Where
folk
it began.
the story of Nathan Sheridan.
Yeah. I mean, I had a pretty rough upbringing. My grandparents raised me, who I love and have an amazing relationship with. And they took me in real young because my parents were, man, just different drugs, different vices that they had. And I give a lot of grace there because they weren't really ready or prepared to raise me or my sister because of those vices. And addiction is a crazy thing that I can't even begin to understand. Thank God I never went down that road. But man, about 4 years old, my grandparents took me in. I didn't see my mom for over 10 years.
Wow.
My my dad was in and out of jail. Man, it was just a wild time. And I say my mom and dad and I say grandparents, but it's kind of funny because like my grandparents truly are like my mom and dad. That's how long they raised me. That's how ingrained it is, like that's mom and dad to me. But I got to keep it all separate so people understand the story. But it's like, it's so crazy. And, my sister Sarah, who, man, that was my, honestly, I mean, that was everything, growing up is like your siblings, the only other person you have next to you kind of. And, she got diagnosed with brain cancer around 8 years old. And I think it was a year later after she received that diagnosis, she passed away. And I mean, that just turned my whole world upside down, even to this day, like when I think back on it, it's like, it kind of like throws me for a loop, because I'm like, wow, like being 6 years old at that point and all those things happening with my biological parents, abandoning me, abandoning my sister, and then her getting sick and my grandparents kind of, getting thrown to the wolves a bit, having to take care of that and take care of me. And, it was crazy looking back how much that affected me, even though I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how much it was affecting me. And I always tell people I was that kid that floated through life and I had nothing going on in here. Like I had, like, of course I loved baseball and I loved video games and all these things that kids love and, the Disney Channel, whatever. But man, I don't really remember having like a lot of dreams or a lot of goals, like, or anything that really spoke to me, and it's like looking back, man, there was just like a numbness there, that I recognize now, thankfully. And it wasn't until I got into my teenage years, I started picking up a guitar. I have to do this shout out because it's kind of confusing. I actually have another sister named Tennille who I call her my much, much older sister because she was,
Sure, she loves that.
right. When I was born, she was already, in her 20s.
Wow.
And, she got me my first guitar when I was 15 and, it was, a huge blessing because, I really took to it well and she was kind of like a mother to me too. And, she got me my first guitar and I started playing that thing and man, kind of never looked back really. Like I just loved playing guitar. I loved, and started kind of writing some songs, got into youth group bands, started that whole thing, man, thank God for praying grandparents. Cause like they'd drag me to church, like they'd keep me in there. Like they really wanted me to be a part of the church and have a great foundation. And, through that period of my life, man, I finally accepted Christ, as my savior. And, I knew I wanted to, in my heart, I was just telling Justin Gambino this. Me and him were talking, and he was also in the service. And looking back, it's kind of crazy. Like I knew that God was calling me to music, but with all those traumatic things and with all that stuff that had happened, I didn't know how to accept that. I did not know how to be like, okay, God, yes, I believe you're calling me into music and writing songs and you want me to, reach the world with the gospel, doing this, this music thing. I just had no foundation for that. I was like a baby Christian. Like I really had no foundation for that. And I was telling him, like, looking back, man, it's crazy that I didn't just go straight into music. But man, 17 years old, I joined the military And because I didn't know how to do anything, like I didn't know how to just be like, oh yeah, let me go to Nashville and cut a record. That was not going, that would have never happened.
Yeah.
So man, I like, praise God, like 17 years old, I signed up for the military, and that's actually where God provided the platform and the venue for me to lead worship, in a more structured setting, to be able to lead a team of other worshipers and singers and a band and all these things, and like really, cut my teeth doing that, and started writing some slightly better songs. You know how it is, like, when I was 16 and writing songs, I thought, oh my God, these are so good. And now I'm afraid to even go look at those songs, but, and just get better at writing, getting the bad songs out and the good songs in, and, man, so like my military service, was really just an incredible time. Got deployed to Kuwait for basically a whole year, 3 months training at Fort Bliss, and then went to Kuwait for 9 months. And then, man, in both situations, got to lead worship at different chapels, but kind of start leading there. I mean, we had just an incredible team, and ended up getting a volunteer service medal for leading worship.
Wow.
They were tracking my hours behind the scenes. They're like, Nathan's been doing about 700 hours worth of volunteer service. So they ended up giving me an award for that. I'm like, it was just a huge blessing. Like, man, the Lord really showed up and gave me this chance. While, because when you're deployed, you're questioning everything. You're like, why am I here? What's my purpose? There will never, anybody that's been deployed is like, why am I here? What did I get myself into? And that was me for sure, especially being at that point, 18 years old. I was probably the youngest person, one of the youngest people at least on base, the entire base. So for me to have that opportunity was like, I needed that. Looking back, I really, really needed that. And as soon as I came home, man, I started getting into it. I started getting into writing and studio, and just kind of chasing more after that call, and got in my best friend Luke Dufour, and he got me in the studio, and we did an acoustic record that wasn't very good because my songs weren't very good, but man, again, getting that out of me and getting the good songs in, and man, that led to me meeting some people in Nashville, and led to better songs that led to a record deal that, it's so I could go on and on and on, to where we are today. But man, I always use like my testimony and all this trauma, like I use that to fuel my songwriting. I use that to fuel, this mission, I have this ministry I have, to reach people for the gospel through music and through my story, I just wrote a song, and now I'm a dad, and, I got married, close to 10 years ago, which is insane, it doesn't feel that long. And, my wife is the one who like really pushed me to Nashville, like really, really pushed me here. And, she like believed in me 100%. And now we have a, baby girl together. She's 5 years old, which is also crazy to say.
Wow.
So, and I look at it like I wrote this last song, Your Daddy's Fine. I wrote that song because I'm like, man, we're out here like breaking generational curses. Like we're out here, restructuring things, like all these things. I've been able to shield my daughter from all these things. Like, and yeah, it's hard being a man and, protecting your kids from those things, protecting your family, from the things that you had to endure when you were,
especially when she's coming into the age of
Absolutely.
when all this was happening.
Yeah.
Almost maybe has to give you like some PTSD
yeah,
thinking about it, because she is that age.
It does. And it's less of like, it's less traumatic and more just in awe of like, man, it's just unbelievable to think like me and my wife are still married. Like, wow, we're still together after 10 years, when so many people in our family and extended family they were lucky to make it a couple years, if they ever got married at all. The children, we're both in our daughter's life. She has a mom and a dad home. There's no like, oh, get her this weekend and then the next weekend, you can have her or anything. She has her own like amazing personality that, we've been able to, let flourish, like we give her the groundwork, but it's great for her to be, she really is her own person. And I think that's super, super cool. I know that's cliche, but it's like, it really is like that. I always tell people when you have a kid, like if people say, oh, you got to train them up in the way they should go. And that's true. You do, and that's biblical, right? But it's so funny because one thing you cannot train a child is their personality.
Yeah.
And like, that's, And I think it's fun. I think it's fun. I never want to kill her spirit, you know, the way maybe mine was kind of killed, you know, whenever I was her age. So that's why I wrote this song and want to write more songs like that. I'm like, man, look at us. Like we're out here really, you know, we're doing something great for Jesus. We're doing, you know, right here in our own family. This is a ministry right here. We're doing something great for Jesus, great for her. We're ministering to her and giving the gospel to her. And this is like part of our story. Like we're redeeming all this. Like we're redeeming all this. Look how far we've come and like how much redemption there is. And that's what I tell people at every single show, man. Like it doesn't matter where you've been, where you're going, where you're at right now. Man, there's nothing too broken in your life that Jesus can't fix it. That's what I truly believe. And I always preface with this too. Like it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to look like they looked before, because, you know, all these things I'm talking about, you know, accepting Christ, it didn't make my sister come back. It didn't make my parents decide to raise me and come back together or anything like that. But it is what I have now is like, it's like the story of Job, how he was given everything 7 times over. You know, he lost so much, but look what he gained. Like the Lord has blessed me, and my life, I wouldn't change it for the world. I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I mean, all these traumatic things, like of course, in a way, like I'm still like, man, I wish my sister was here. I wish. And it's like, but you know what? I don't believe God's the one that did that to my sister or to me. Man, there's just things that happen in life that we can't explain. We don't know why they happen, but it's what we do with it. And I think what I've been able to do with it is finally great. You know, like I can't say it's always been, but like it's finally getting there. And especially being a dad now and getting to kind of even put this in my music now, it's really, really cool. And I think I'll do more of it. I like it a lot, you know, being able to give that perspective. So
yeah, you kind of talked about it a little bit there. A lot of times when people face difficulties and grief, they kind of go the opposite direction. They blame God. They go away from it. I saw it in my own family. My mom was super religious. My grandma was super religious. My dad was pretty religious, not as much as them. They both die within 6 months. My dad goes on to blame God. And we're talking 12, 13 years now. My dad's still never stepped in front of a church, back in a church, still blames God for taking all this. You went a different direction. Do you remember when it clicked maybe that where this is just part of my story. God didn't do this to punish me. You were so young, but it sounds like there was a gap there between when all this was happening, when you find Christ. Do you remember what clicked that was like, that made you change the way you talk about it?
You know, that's a great question. I think it was one of those things where my story was more like, I always kind of just felt like, oh, well, I'm Christian because we go to church and my grandma was a Christian, you know, we have Bibles on the shelf. Like, and this is sort of like, this almost sort of sounds like a cheesy Christian film, the way I'm explaining it to you, but I truly did feel that, oh, well, I'm a Christian because I go to church camp. It was almost something you're born into, you know, like that's how I felt about it. And then it kind of clicked for me. It was like actually, you know, at a different church, and man, realizing that it's about your personal relationship with Christ and knowing like it's one-on-one. It's not all these exterior things. It's about what you have going on with Christ. It's a vertical thing. And we can go directly to Jesus, and it's not about your mom. It's not about your dad. It's not about these things that happen to you. And I think sometimes we think all these things that happen in our life, instead of viewing them as just exterior factors or exterior circumstances, we start to think like, oh, I'm the reason this happened, or God is the reason this happened. And none of that's true, but that's like really the enemy's purpose, is to seek, kill, and destroy. He wants us to believe that. He wants us to believe like, man, you know, God took your sister from you. You know, why did God let that happen? You know, and that's the age-old question. It's like, well, why does God let this happen? Why does God let this happen? And it's like, you know, in an imperfect world, in a sinful world, there's going to be trials, there's going to be tribulations, there's going to be circumstances that come. I mean, I can't tell you why things happen the way they do, why, you know, a mother dies or why a son dies, you know, when they're only 8 years old, or, you know, my sister got cancer, or why my parents, but it's like, you know what? I believe that everything works for the good of those that love God. That's what I believe. And that's Romans 8:28. Everything works together for the good of those that love God. And are called according to his purpose. And I believe every single one of us have a purpose. But man, it's a grace thing too. Like with your dad, man, there just has to be a ton of grace put there. Grace. Like, because I believe there's no condemnation for those that are in Christ. And I think sometimes I don't want to put this on the church, but I think sometimes churches could maybe do a little bit better of helping people that are in grief, of helping people that are in these places, like they don't know how to deal with it. Man, it can take a toll on your mental health too. And that's a big factor too. I mean, your mental health can be impaired so badly in those situations to where you're not even thinking correctly about it. You don't even know how to think correctly about it. And it takes like the church and people, man, maybe the church should go knock on his door and be like, hey, brother, we haven't seen you. We'd love for you to be here. Take them food, whatever. And I'm just speaking broad here, but I just believe like the church has such a huge impact they can make there. And we shouldn't give up we should never give up on those people, man. Just because they haven't been to church in a while, I'm still a big believer. It's like, they're welcome here anytime and we can minister to those people. And I could have easily just let all that get to me. I think a benefit for me is I was so young when it happened.
Yeah.
And like, I think now, like, I've thought about this a lot. How would I react now? Like when I have it all, when things are good, and if it all came back around and, God forbid my wife or something happens to my daughter or something happens to my wife, how am I going to react then? Like, do I have the faith enough for that right now?
Yeah.
And nobody knows the answer to that.
And hopefully you never do. Hopefully you die not knowing.
Praise God. Nothing like that has happened, but man, I could see how somebody's faith would be so shaken, but are we going to judge that person and be like, oh, well, they let it get to them. I guess they're not saved anymore. I mean, I don't buy into it. I don't think that's the Jesus I know, man. I really don't. I think Jesus has a lot of grace for people that are going through that. And, man, even Job's wife said, why don't you curse God and die? And it's easy for those voices to get in your head. Easy. So are we going to judge that person for letting it get to him? Man, I don't think we should. That's just my personal opinion. But I definitely had the benefit of being in a way, I had the disadvantage, yet the benefit of being a young man.
Yeah.
When this happened to me, because as an adult, that's why I'm so reflective now. I'm like, man, I look back, it's like, could I deal with that now the way I dealt with it then? I don't want to answer that.
Yeah.
Because then I feel like I'm opening a door I don't want to open there. Like,
Do you remember as that young kid, how your older sister that you talk about being much older than you, how she reacted and how that maybe affected you during that time?
Well, it was hard, man. My whole family, honestly, looking back, they stood up. I mean, they were going to make sure that we got through it. And I think everybody had to heavily lean on Jesus in that time. And man, I just praise God. I come from a family of faith.
Yeah,
man, I don't know what would happen if I didn't have a sister that loved Jesus, if I didn't have a grandmother that loved Jesus. And man, but I mean, of course it broke them, anything like that, but man, when you have faith, sometimes that's all you have is what I'm trying to say. Like you lean on that 100%. Like I'm leaning on my faith, because you can't lean on, if you start leaning on all the, you start thinking about all these other things and, you start wondering why this happened. Man, you just got to have faith. You got to have faith that this is all going to work out. Like, and that's where I'm at with it, and I'm sure that's where they had to be with it. Like, man, and they never stopped praying for me. They never stopped loving me. They still, man, brought me to school, made sure I, went to church, made sure I had clothes to wear, made sure I had food to eat. Like it was always a collaborative effort, because of course I was deeply affected through it, even though I didn't necessarily. That's what's crazy about when you're a kid. Yeah. Man, kids are so resilient, that they'll put some stuff out like they're mine. And if you're not careful, it can kind of consume them and they don't even know it, but kids it's interesting being a kid and dealing with what I dealt with. And then, then I think about the perspective, man, what did my grandmother feel? What did my sister feel? What did my aunts and uncles feel?
And did they have time to even grieve because they were so worried about you and your siblings?
Well, and
what you were going through.
Exactly. And worried about me. And then also,
their kid.
Yeah. Their kids and then their jobs. And then that's the thing is like life doesn't stop when these things happen. It's so crazy to think about, man, every day somebody's entire world stops.
Yeah.
And like yours is still going. Like how many times have you watched the news and 20 people killed in an earthquake and in India or Bangladesh, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
Man, that's sad. And then you just keep going with your day. Like you feel bad for those. It's like, but for those 20 people and their family, their whole world stopped that day.
Mm.
Everything changed. And it's like, it feels almost brutal.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wait, no, everybody should stop today. Like everything needs to stop now because my world stopped. But that's not how it is. You know, it can feel so brutal.
Yeah.
You know, and
for a lot of those people, they need more than just prayer. You can't just go to them and say, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
Because there's not every scenario.
Because it can't be received. It's like, it, you know, it's, and of course we should pray for them. But at the same time, you know, it's like a homeless man, you know, saying need something to eat. If you say, well, let me pray with you. It's not that the prayer is in vain. It's just that if you can't fill his stomach, how can he hear you?
Yeah.
How can he hear you if you haven't filled his stomach? It's like, that's why we have to go reach out to orphans and widows. Like, if we can't help people in their grief, if we can't help people, the poor will always be among us. You know, if we can't help the poor, if we can't do that, man, it's going to be hard to reach people. It's going to be hard to win souls for Christ when we can't fulfill somebody's needs, you know, basic needs. And I think that's big. You know, even Jesus said, man, bring all the little children to me. You know, he knew that, you know, it was good. It was good. And if anybody hurts a child, you know, if anybody should cause one of these children to stumble, it'd be better for him to throw himself into the sea. He was big about, man, let's never do anything that's going to cause these kids to stumble. We need to be here for them. We need to be here for these widows, for these orphans, for these children, for the poor. And I think, and it's like, and of course, somebody who's not a Christian can also do those things. But Jesus knew that we have to be able to fulfill some of these needs in the community, in the world, so that people can actually hear what we have to say, you know? And I think that's so true, man. Like, it's one thing to be like, well, I'm praying for you. But it's another, you know, if somebody, for example, you know, it's one thing if, you know, there's a man dealing with addiction on the side of the road and he has no money and he needs food to eat. And it's one thing to be like, well, I'll pray for you. But it's another thing, man, if you bring him something to eat, you know, and you ask, maybe put him up in a hotel for the night. And then you'd be like, man, I'm going to pray for you tonight and bring you some clothes in the morning and stuff like that. Man, like, which one do you think's going to have an impact?
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, we already know the answer to that. And I think that's great. And I love that the church is, I think, seeing that more than ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the church knows that. And that's why, man, I love how we're seeing more and more community outreaches and more like going beyond the four walls, you know, whereas maybe before, like, you know, church was a little more isolated, you know, church. So now we're seeing, especially with social media and all these things, like, man, we're able to make such a big impact and help people in so many different situations. Even recently, like with the hurricanes in North Carolina and stuff, me and my wife were able to send out a bunch of baby formula and, you know, clothes and just everything. And man, those people there's nothing I could give those people that's going to replace what they lost. But it's not, for me, it wasn't enough to say, well, I'm just going to pray for that situation. Of course I prayed for that situation, but it's like, well, I'm going to step up and I'm going to do this. I'm going to show people that we're the hands and feet. That's what I want to do, you know, because their whole world stopped today. You know, and I need to help kickstart that, man. Like, I don't want them to lose faith, man. I don't want them to be like Job, you know, where they got to struggle. It's like, it shouldn't be that way. You know, I think about, man, I know that might seem existential almost, but it's like, man, I think about it all the time. It's like, 30 people died here, an entire village destroyed, you know. I think, man, somebody's whole world stopped today. And I went to work and I wrote some music and I just live, but it's like, wait, no, everything's got to stop, everything. And it's like, no, it doesn't need to stop, but we need to pivot. Yeah. We need to figure out a way to pivot. Like, their whole world stopped, so we need to help figure out a way. And I mean, it's not always me and you that have to do it, but it's like, I always think the church has its place, you know, in those situations, and locally, nationally, globally, like, more now than ever. And it's working. Yeah. You know, it's working. Like, that stuff is amazing. And like, I know a lot of people talk bad about the church, and, you know, the church has its faults, but man, I love the church and what it's doing right now for people all across the world. And I think, man, let's just give as much as we can, like, give our time, give our money, like, whatever we can give, let's do it. And I'm like, of course I want to be able to give my songs and, you know, and of course it benefits me too, and people listen to it. But man, it's like, I've always said, man, I want a song to be out there that just blesses everybody, and people don't even know I wrote it. Yeah. Like, you hear it and everybody's singing it, and like, you can, you know, you go to any church and they're singing it and it's blessing everybody. They don't even care that you wrote it. Like, to me, it might sound weird, but to me, it's like, that's just so cool. Like, I don't know, just something about it, like being able to give that gift to the world and, kind of, almost be disconnected from it a little bit.
And they would live on way past.
Live on way past, man. I think about, like, a song like How Great Is Our God, right? Like, we all know Chris Tomlin wrote that, but man, you'd be shocked. So many different versions and languages that song's in. People don't always know, oh yeah, that's Chris Tomlin, They think that's a hymn written on a ship from the 1700s, they're like, that's how, the reach of that song, how much blessed the world.
Also, I mean, they have hymns in every hymnal in every church that you have no clue even how many years it's been around, who wrote it.
Oh yeah. I just did some hymns. It's so funny. What sweet spirit in this place. Yeah. And then I did that one, and then because he lives I can face tomorrow. And everybody thinks those songs are so old.
Yeah. That's a Gaither song.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them. And it's so funny, like in the 80s, right? In the 80s, 90s, those songs were written, and you would swear that those songs were, no, man, that's in the public domain. It's so old. It's like, no, it's still copyright.
Bill will still knock on your door and want his royalties.
Well, yeah, Bill Gaither is not going to let it slide, right? Which, amazing songs. And you're right with the Gettys, How Deep the Father. I think it's Christ Alone.
Yeah.
And Christ Alone, I mean, people think that song is so old. It's like, man, no, it's not. It's just like the message of the Lord is timeless, though. That's why it feels so old, because it's like, it's so beautiful and poignant. It's like when you, put the time into it, like, man, there's music still yet to be written that's going to bless the world in like a timeless way. Like it's going to carry over. And I thought that was so funny, because there's people that think all hymns are old, and they're really not, man. There's still people out there writing beautiful music.
Yeah.
As of recent, and still.
I mean, the Gettys aren't too much older than us. I mean, they have
they're not
themselves that are similar to your age.
And I love their message, man, of like getting back to that foundation, man. I love that. Like, I love the whole movement towards, foundational songwriting. Like, man, let's get back to the gospel. Let's get back to some of these hymns. Let's get back to writing what's pure, writing what's correct, like not theologically, and also just like what resonates, on the human level as well, of like, and even with this song I wrote, like, man, I wrote it because, it's about me as a father, about my daughter, about what I believe. And I always say, like, if it's resonating with me, then it's probably resonating with somebody else. And it's not this bubblegum thing that I'm writing just so I can be on the radio or hit all the editorial playlists on Spotify. I'm like, yeah, of course, that's amazing when that happens. Like, every artist dreams of having a huge song blow up. But it's kind of funny, isn't it, that almost every time that sort of happens, it's like the song they didn't really even think. The label didn't really think this was a single, and or I was so sure it was going to be this one over here. Yeah. And no, it wasn't, I mean, and it's just one of those things, like, God works in crazy ways, especially in Christian music. Like, there's been songs I've done that got such an amazing response at shows, and people are like, oh man, that has to be your number one. Like, I've had that so many times. Yeah. Like, oh man, that has to be on the radio, right? Like, that's your number one thing. I'm like, no, it's not actually. Like, I don't know why. Like, the Lord
can help me. Screaming on repeat.
You reach out and save it.
So we kind of tie all this together with that new song you've mentioned a few times. And when people hear the title and they've already heard your story, I feel like they can almost picture what the song is, what the lyrics are going to be. The song title, Your Daddy's Fine. How many years was this in the works? Because, I mean, is this from journal entries from when your daughter was born, or is this all kind of recent?
Yeah, it's all kind of recent. It's funny. Story behind it is I was on Instagram, I was on social media, and this guy was kind of showing off some kind of cool chord patterns that he was, it's like, oh, look, you could tune your guitar this way, and then you could play chords like, oh, that's so cool. So that night I went and kind of experimented with that. And I put the capo on, like, the second fret and just messing around. And man, all of a sudden, like, a melody came to me, and like that line, Your Daddy's Fine, came to me. I was like, oh, there it is. And like, I just went for it. And I think over the course of 2 nights, I can't help but not, like, write it late at night. I'm a night owl for sure. So man, about 2 nights, I wrote that song, just kind of letting it weigh on me a little bit. And then I presented it. Oh, funny, this is actually how it happened. I wrote the song, but I hadn't recorded it. I just had it in my mind. I knew like what it sounded like. I didn't even do like a voice recording of it. I just knew the way the song was in my head. And there's some melodies that are just like, oh, you remember them. Like it was pretty easy. And then it was like the night before an A&R meeting. I was like, man, if I don't show them this song, they're not going to hear it until if we have another meeting. It could be 3-4 months down the road. Because if anybody doesn't know how an A&R meeting works, it's like, hey, here's 30 songs. Let's listen to every single one of them and let's rate them, say what we think about it. It's like, you're not doing that every month, you know? Like,
and then post them to TikTok, see if they get shared.
Yeah, of course, right? You know, you're dead on. But that's before the A&R. Hey guys, I just wrote a new one. What do you think about this?
Well, let's tease it.
Yeah, let's tease it, and then it never comes out. But you know, we did this big A&R thing, and I was like recorded it just in the nick of time, just on my phone.
So hearing the description of that, listening to some of your past music, you're definitely a storyteller.
Yeah.
And in Christian music, sometimes that is not what gets the attention of radio and record labels, but you've stuck with it anyway. We talk about the hymns, worship music, always going to be a place for that.
Yeah.
But there should probably be a place for songs like this that really resonate with people. It works in country music and such, but it is starting to change. It's starting to shift a little bit on social media. I see every day, Christian music's back. I don't know if Christian music ever went away, but I do feel like the storytelling songs are starting to come in.
Yeah.
What do you think is making that shift finally happen for songwriters like you?
You know what I think? Man, I think the idea of, being cool and trying to play this game and all these things, I think all that's just done. I think everybody sees straight through it now. That's what I think. I don't think there's any rules anymore, you know? All people want is great music, and they're finding it. They're not being held back by radio anymore. They're not being held back by an editorial playlist. They are finding the music that they want to listen to. And at the end of the day, everything is shifting because not everybody has to listen to the radio anymore. Not everybody has to. There are people who go on, this sounds crazy even to me, that go on TikTok to listen to music every day. That's how they find music. That's how they listen to music, you know.
And sometimes it's not the demo that you're thinking.
Right.
It might be your grandma going to TikTok and listening to music.
Exactly. And I mean, it's all walks of life, all ages are finding new ways to find new music, to connect with music. And then, you know, it used to be to where you really only heard worship music. We'll just use that as you only heard that really in church, or you really only heard it on K-Love or you know, the Way FM or Air One, and now you're hearing it everywhere. And there's so many different niches and genres, subgenres of this, and so many of them are getting popular. And I think people want to hear good, honest music. They want to hear the more raw material. They want to hear a more specific story. They want something that's a little more nitty gritty. And that's how music used to be, right? All the great songs that we love, like, of course, there's always been bubblegum pop. There's always been that in some form or fashion. But man, you go back and listen to, you know, some songs back 70s, 80s, you know, even as recently as the 90s, you know, the 90s had the big punk pop era. Man, or the punk and the punk pop era, you know, you go back and listen to some of those lyrics and they're kind of filled with a lot. And people love that. Like, they sat there and they listened to it. And I think for a while, like, our attention spans just like got short. And I think maybe in a way, social media brought that along. But now it's almost kind of helping bring it back, you know, to where now we want to hear that again. We want to hear those artists that nobody knows about. I had a friend, this is such a great example. I had a friend message me recently, said, hey man, word verbatim, shout out to Dan Terry. He messaged me and said, do you have any new demos you're working on? I want to hear it because I feel like the only music I'm enjoying right now is the music that my friends are making.
Wow.
Like, so it was so niche for him. He needed to hear music, new music, demo tapes, so to speak, from people that were close to him because he just wasn't finding what he wanted. And that's so many people. They're all over the internet, all over social media, trying to, like, they're hoping the algorithm just feeds them a new song from a new artist. And I know that's me. Like, I really want to hear just a new, fresh worship artist, like, or you know, singer-songwriter, just giving a different take on a certain topic, or finding a new sound, you know, I think everybody wants that. I'm not saying I'm some revolutionary that's doing something nobody's ever done, but I do think some of my music is unique, and especially this song I think is just different than what's really coming out, especially in Christian music. And the reason I think oddly enough, the reason I think there's a market, quote unquote, for it is that there's no market for it. It's like it's kind of like the opposite. It's like, yeah, all the radio stations would be like, oh no, like we can't really find a place for this. And maybe editorials are like, we can't find a place for this, but it can find its place. It can find its way on social media, you know, especially, man, like, and people just sharing it with their friends and being like, hey, have you heard this guy? Like,
So when will we get to hear some more of these from the heart songs from you? Is it we get this song
soon?
It's coming mid-June. Depending on when you're watching this, it could already be out there. If it's not, it's out there, what, June 12th, 13th?
June 13th, yeah, right before Father's Day. It'll drop. So.
Yeah, so either listen to it then or listen to it now, depending on when you're listening to this. And then more is on the way. Is this going to be an EP, album, just more singles?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, I know we're definitely releasing some more singles like right away, which is fun. We're about to have some more stuff in the works. That being said, there could be an EP, could be an album. So maybe an album is 2026 territory, but we're working towards a lot. Love my label and all the people at it, and it's been having some great conversations over there. And man, just some amazing songs that no one's heard yet. I think probably 30 songs people haven't.
Wow.
You know, not all of them.
And some of them,
not all of them great.
We still will not get, probably.
Yeah, it's like some of them will probably stay hidden, but you know, man, quite a few of those I was like so excited about, and everybody at the label's really excited about. And it's honestly, I think sometimes it's more just an issue of timing. It's like we know we love this song, we dig it, we want to put it out, we think it's an incredible message, but when are we going to be able to put, like, where in the space of time can we put this? It's like staggering things out. It can be difficult. So, and then of course, like production phase and distro phase, and like you're always waiting, right? You got to have a song out 6 weeks before you got to have the song done and delivered 6 weeks before it ever gets out.
For any chance of getting a playlist.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't even look at it if it's not 6 weeks.
Yeah, so it's an interesting